All right, for the most part, I just feel like uh, rookie training camp is just a time of a lot of hype and excitement. The flower of hope is bloomed, and a lot of times there's hyperbole. You see it make that catch, make that step, and whatever. But I will say, going through the interviews, I saw some very interesting stuff. And I got his name now because he helped me out with it. Saviniah had the most interesting quote, and I'm going to get into that and some other observations. But I do think this time there has been some interesting bits and pieces. Try not to cover stuff just to cover stuff to get clicks and all that. And, try to project things. I like accuracy, but I do, again, think there's a bunch of very interesting observations. So let me get into that. So I'm not going to go in order because I thought Saviniah, Jonah Savaiinaea, said that thing about 100 times. I hope I got it right. Provided the most interesting bit of the day. And he said this.
My whole career playing football, I'm used to like pushing off on my left. So when I got put left side, pushing out of my right leg, it's something I'm not comfortable with. So now that I'm trying to get used to that and just being able to push off of that right, and that's my goal.
So if you watch my podcast on the inside zone and where our offensive line is going to line up, I really thought Daniels would play left and he would play right. But you heard him say, "Hey, I'm not really used to playing on the left side. I'm not used to pushing off my right foot. But now I am working hard. I'm getting used to it," which means they're giving him substantial amount of reps on the left side, which would mean left guard. And so we don't know if that's where he's going to stay, but you'd assume, there's cross training in there, I'm sure. But if they're getting him ready on the left, they're expecting him to play on the left side, or they're really aiming for that. So you got Daniels, who's coming off an Achilles, and he's played mostly right, but he would be the vet. And I thought that in my podcast, to cut it up quickly, you'd want to split things up maybe for overall health of the offensive line, with Paul, a second-year guy, and Daniels, the vet, then Brewer, and then Saviniah, and then Jackson. But I said, maybe if you really want to get a strong run side, you might want to put Paul and Saviniah, and then you're going to have Farrell Brown on the outside. And maybe this is part of the plan. Or maybe part of the plan is that Daniels might not be ready and they're more comfortable with Eichenberg starting at right guard. We don't know. There's no indication that Daniels won't be ready, but there is a clear indication that Saviniah is going to play on the left side, and that's very interesting. They're putting him in a position that's not necessarily comfortable for him. They're putting him next to Paul, who's kind of still green. So this is going to be a key eval for this coaching staff. On another note with Saviniah, I'm slow to come to love players because you get your heart broken that way. Duran was very easy because he had a long history. But if you look at Saviniah, he's dropped some weight and he's got broad shoulders. And I'm a big believer in prototypes and the way the body looks. And if you look at his pecs, they're lifted high, which means there's not a lot of fat there and there's a lot of muscle. He looks phenomenal. And I think that some of the knocks or concerns that I had about the power aspect may be more involved with technique, or might be alleviated not fully, but much less than the concern should be come the season. That's great news. I mean, if Paul develops and Saviniah develops, you could have your Webb and Sims. I'm not saying equal, please, but that young team together, that young side together that plays really well. That's exciting, especially if a guy loves, or guys, girls who love the offensive line. This is great news. Now, uh, he was very smart too. And that's it's very smart, and you could feel the honor and character from the man. And so I am very, very high on this kid. I want to see him move people inside. I want to see him not suffer too much from the bull rush. Uh, but I'm a little bit less concerned now. Maybe it's hopium. We'll see. Now, Kenneth Grant, our first overall pick, real nice kid, big. You could see how big he was. Now, if you notice what I talked about with Saviniah, the pecs were high, and you could see this kid is pretty darn built. And if you watch Saviniah do his drills, those calves, they're like, his calves are massive. And he's got cankles, which I love cankles on an inside player. I love cankles. If you know what cankle is, it's calf and ankle. The one just bleed down. It's just like a tree. And that really helps you root. So Saviniah, I'm very high. And the people who really loved him, I think, should be that excited. But Kenneth Grant, nice guy, big guy, like everything he said. But if you notice, he just had this run of flatness and then like this stuff hanging down really low, kind of coming out. And he looked like he's carrying some fat. And it didn't look like he didn't look well built. And so as my alleviations came of Saviniah needing to get built physically and maybe seeing a little time for that to develop, it's really kind of stayed on Grant. Grant's a guy right now who needs to get stronger. I understand the 22 bench from the way I see him look. This is not a bad thing. You're 21 years old. Your bench when I went from high school and I stopped playing for a couple of years and was Jim Morrison for a few years, I got my bench up to 16 times 225. And when I first got on the team, I did it 1.5. And in one off season, that wasn't my legit bench. I was much higher than that, but not what I had gotten to, the 216. I put on a lot of muscle naturally because I just worked my tail off. And Grant is a guy who must get better physically. He's got the agility. He's got the natural size. And so this is a puppy. He felt like a puppy to me, but a darn big St. Bernard puppy that he could grow into something uber special, because if he tacks on the physicality, the physical development, and the strength to what he has, this guy could be a legitimate steal. But I think he's got to. That chest, that's why they can do the bench, because it helps push you off. There's a lot in the chain of muscles to do it, but you've got to have that. It's the triceps, it's the shoulders, the deltoids, and the chest to push guys off, to hold guys off, and to lock them in place. And so I like what I saw from the kid, but I do think he needs some physical development. Now, one guy who doesn't need physical development is Jordan Phillips. And I can't remember who said it, but he got it at 5:30 in the morning, and Phillips was the first guy in lifting weights. And if you look at Phillips, he's got a neck and his shoulders are long and this kid looks dense. And the thing that you can't really see in pads is because the pads broaden your shoulders and it changes the way your physical prototype looks. But when the pads are off, you can see the natural physical prototype. And this kid is a bowling ball. Bowling pin. He just comes down. His lower body is so thick. It's a football body. And again, like the cankles of Saviniah, this helps root you. And his upper body is no slouch either. And the kid is smart. And he talked about wrestling helping him with leverage and how to control people by the arms and by the triceps and the biceps. Really, the wrist does it the best, but you can't really grab by the wrist, but you can get in there into the inside of the arm and around the bicep and control that guy. And so this kid does continue to excite me. He's got intelligence as well. You could see he's very serious. And he talked about respecting the jersey and being great off the field. And if you see him, the first guy on, and you see this physical body that he's got, I think this kid is really got a chance. And I'm excited. I'm excited about all three of these. Although Grant, I do think he's got to get rid of the hanging boob thing. He's got to build some more muscle. But 21 years old, NFL program with all the nutrition they can give you and everything else, I think that could easily be handled. So I'm very excited about him. I think he's going to contribute. I think there's a really good chance for this kid not to be an all-pro, but to be a real contributor. And maybe even earlier than some, including me, might think. Comes down to the technique. But if you want some guy to root and you want to wrap a thin defensive secondary around something, this is a kid that I think clearly he is chiseled. No wonder he's getting 365 up twice. It was a little bit of a cheap press. It wasn't strict press. I thought it was strict press, and that changes a little bit, but not a ton. So then Marshall, this kid's built. I think that what we're going to do is a lot of zones. And I think one way that you want to slow down the pass is to get into guys and jam them off. He talked about how he loves to get into guys and jam. And this guy is built. He really has a ton. I like what I saw. I thought he was a pretty professional guy, pretty serious. So ultimately, I think there's a chance, certainly on special teams. But if you're playing cover 3, you can press that down a little bit and get guys on the line of scrimmage to jam the receivers off, maybe a tight end. You really want to jam that tight end. I don't know why so many teams let guys run free when you really have the opportunity. If you're playing zone, jam that guy and then drop, because it really throws the timing off. And I think that maybe this is what we're looking at and why we got him. Now, Dante Trader is safety, small, 5'11", 193, but pretty well built, very smart. I love when he said this.
The speed of the game in the playbook, you know what I'm saying? Like, again, I haven't played at this level. I have no experience, so I'm back at the bottom. It's not college anymore, so you got to throw out the college.
It's a clear understanding that he realizes that this view that we have of these players in college, it's one thing. There's a few guys on each team that are going to the pros. The rest of the guys don't make it. And then when you go from being a star or a stud in college, and then you got, your special teamers were stars in college, it gets a lot harder to have success. And sometimes the extrapolation of the tape and the evaluations from college to the pros, it's why it's so hard, but it doesn't always jive. And I love that he said that. I thought he was very smart. This kid's going to make it on his intelligence and physicality. He clearly is trying to be like the field general. He's trying to get the cerebral edge. And, you could see with Zach Thomas, who wasn't, they listed him at 6'1" or 6 foot 230, and he wasn't that. He wasn't physically gifted in some areas. He was, and ability to deal with pain, thickness of body, pain tolerance, all that stuff. But and just intelligence. But his intelligence is what allowed him to become the Hall of Famer. Thank God that he became. Not saying he could be that, but if you understand, hey, I'm lacking some physical things, man, I gotta ace this brain part. He's doing that, and that's a good sign. Then Ollie Gordon, he wasn't what I thought he'd be. This guy has got a personality. He's funny. He's pretty vivacious. I expect him to be more hard-nosed, more like a Marshall. But he was really funny, really easy to like. His personality wears on you in a good way. He's very funny. But what I did notice is I can't believe he's 226. He is 6'1", and it spreads that weight out. So he is tall. He is kind of not thin. He's muscular. But he's going to have to get low in this league because guys know how to tackle. They know how to hit into the lower part of the body. But very nice kid, big kid, but that athletic big. And so it's going to be his pad level and his ability to adjust on the fly and to sacrifice his body is going to be key because he is so tall and he isn't gigantic. I mean, he could put 240 on easy. So then there was Quinn and Evers. I don't know. All the quarterbacks, they know what to say. They're smart. I don't know. We'll see. And then it was Zeke Biggers. Zeke, I didn't realize he was 6'5" and a half, almost 6'6", and 331. Pretty well built, not super well built. Nice kid. But he's a pretty big dude. I didn't realize how big he was. But he's going to have a lot to grow in to make this roster. I don't know. We're going to have to see. But if you look at some of his film and you look at some of his evaluations, he could be a practice squad guy that develops. If he does stick and he does have the size, but it's going to take a little bit of growth, it would be great for us. But overall, I thought the most interesting was Saviniah and that little bit about getting off his right foot. The rest of the guys, nice guys, likable guys, look like hardworking guys. But we're in rookie minicamp, and it's always easy to be positive. But let's see how this thing translates. Once we get to training camp, we'll see the truth from the lie. But overall, I think there's a positivity with a little bit of a mystery over there with Jonah playing what appears to be left guard. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Curtis saying, be well, go Fins. Curtis out. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.